My name is Angela LaRocca, and I am very lucky to be standing next to our keynote speaker this morning, Mr. Dedric Carter. How you doing, Dedric?
Doing great. How are you?
I am wonderful. I am so inspired and fired up, if you can't tell, based on what you said this morning. First of all, what is your title?
So I'm the Associate Provost and Associate Vice Chancellor for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and I'm a Professor of Engineering Practice at Washington University.
So Dedric, you spoke so much great inspiration this morning. One thing that really stood out to me, and I'm going to have to quote you on this, was sometimes we do things for fellowship, and that's okay. Yeah. I would love for you to elaborate on that.
Yeah, so as growing up as a kid, my dad would always take my brother and I regularly to go sell melons in the summer. We'd buy them for $1 and we could sell them for $2. That's economics. But I was actually always trying to rush him when we went to do the sell. He was a minister and in his parish. And he told me that really this was about an interaction, an opportunity to go have a conversation with the people in the parish. Whether they bought or not was insignificant because we were ultimately going to sell them all, but it was really about the relationship. So I think a lot of what we do is we focus on the moment, but it really is about the relationship and extending that and curating that.
Well said. You also made some really great points with a company really having a systematic approach, and I would love for you to expand on those three key factors that you mentioned.
Yeah, so I often say when someone stands in front of you, it's the who are you, what do you do, and why does it matter? And those three questions when we answer either individually or as a corporation are important. And I have a way to think about that. I sort of jokingly say when I see a new startup, I use the Scooby Doo theory of the corporation, where Scooby Doo has Shaggy and Scooby and Velma and Daphne, and they all sort of play different roles. Their R&D, the marketing, the management, the creative department, and they live in this odd thing called the mystery machine, and that's the corporation. So if you find that, when I find that thing that feels like a mystery machine, I have to hammer on it and make sure there's really something there, because if it's not, then you want to know that earlier rather than later. So it's kind of one of the fun tools that I use to sort of say, what is this, what is it doing, and how do I demystify the mystery?
Well put. I think that philosophy is so relatable and funny and honest. And you've also got some really great insight on innovation. And you had another approach that I would love for you to share.
Yeah, so a couple years ago, I came up with a definition in partnership with a colleague of mine on what innovation is. It's sort of moving from fine, F-I-N-E, to finesse. The difference between fine and finesse is ESS, economic, strategic, or societal value. And if you can find that in fundamental knowledge, that truly is innovation. So I think it's a pretty simple yet comprehensive definition of innovation that I'm quite partial to.
That's fantastic. Putting the fine and then moving it to the finesse. I love it. So simple, so true. You also had a great bathtub analogy. Why don't you share that?
So I do a lot of work in systems dynamics, and we think about in systems dynamics what stocks and flows are. And the stocks are things that you hold. They have memory. They're variables that have memory. So it's like a bathtub with water. The inflow is the faucet, which puts water in. The outflow is the drain, which takes water out. So if you understand that analogy, you can easily represent a stock and flow diagram for a systems dynamics model. And you can use that to model corporations, policy impacts, all sorts of things. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So Dedric, I just have to ask the million-dollar question. What drew you to St. Louis?
That's a great question. I think sort of the opportunity, first and foremost. The opportunity and the thing that sustains me and keeps me here is the potential in the community. Mm-hmm. So there is, if you look at what's happening in St. Louis, there's a great potential for entrepreneurship. People who want to work for equity can work for equity. The cost of living is reasonable. The quality of life is very good. And it's in the center of the country, so you can get just about anywhere you want. Relatively easy. We still have some work to work out on the transportation. But it's a really fantastic place with lots of opportunity. And actually, I often say innovation is not new to St. Louis. If you go back to 1803 for the Louisiana Purchase Exposition, that was when St. Louis was in its infancy. By 1904, we were the Paris of the U.S. So Dr. Pepper, standardized light outlets, ice cream cones, all of those came out of the innovations that occurred here in St. Louis. And we're on that upswing.
We absolutely are. We are making things happen, starting with the hub, MVF.
That's right.
What role can MVF specifically play to entrepreneurs or people that are maybe just bouncing around an idea that they're not even sure it would ever make to market? What would you advise them?
So I'm excited to be a member of MVF and a member of the board of directors here. And I think actually MVF is a place where we can actually create some of those spontaneous collisions that we see in other places. We can sort of fuel the energy and enthusiasm of the entrepreneurial community. We can generate ambassadors that will help to make sure that we're in an environment that has both growth and equity as targets, so that unprecedented growth without equity in a community leads to a dysfunction in community. And we've got to find ways to make sure that we're mirroring the excitement and enthusiasm we have in certain parts of the region all over the region. And I think MVF can play a huge role in that.
I think so. And Dedric, you have certainly stirred up a lot of excitement and just really great energy here this morning. Any final words for anyone as we wrap up?
Oh, so we've got miles to go before we sleep, and I'm hoping that all of the folks out there who are watching this, seeing this, and experiencing what I'm talking about in the St. Louis region are ready to get set and go. Yeah.
I love it. Get ready, get set, go. Get out there, make great things happen. Everyone is feeling that today, so thank you so much for your time and inspiration, Dedric.
My pleasure. Thank you.